Alright, welcome back folks to WrestleRant. I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and here today I'm giving my in-depth analysis of the WWE Money in the Bank pay-per-view event, the inaugural installment from 2010. Now, fun fact for you, this was the only Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and I know there's not many of them, but this was the only installment I had not seen in full. I think I only watched the main event when I tuned in. I think I found like some live stream in the last minute. And also another fun fact for you, this was the first pay-per-view event that I watched online, if you know what I mean. I had watched Royal Rumble 2010. I had seen Money in the Bank or WrestleMania 26 a couple months earlier on pay-per-view. I had ordered Royal Rumble 2010. I watched WrestleMania 26 with a friend. But this was the first pay-per-view I had watched live, like online or something. And it kind of started a trend of me trying to find the pay-per-views online and stuff like that. And after a friend introduced it to me, it was like this, riveting concept that I've never heard of before. But anyway, it was fun watching it back though. 2010 was not the greatest year in wrestling, but this show did have a lot of fun matches. And it kind of kicked off one of my favorite pay-per-view events of the year. Money in the Bank, kind of dating back to 2011, my favorite pay-per-view of all time. It's always been a really fun event. I mean, last year I was not too fond of. It was still a decent show. This installment was pretty decent too, but 2011, 2012, 2013, I thought were all great. So I'm looking forward to kind of watching these pay-per-views back and reviewing them for the YouTube channel for you folks. So kicking off this show was a Money in the Bank ladder match for a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship. The combatants included Kane, Christian, Kofi Kingston, Cody Rhodes, Big Show, Matt Hardy, Drew McIntyre, and Dolph Ziggler. So what I liked most about this matchup was that you kind of had 4 veterans and then 4 up-and-coming guys, and most of whom had already been in Money in the Bank ladder matches in the past. You had Christian and Matt Hardy, both, you don't need me to tell you, needless to say, ladder specialists. You had Kane, who was in the very first Money in the Bank ladder match 5 years prior to this. You had, on the up-and-coming side, you had Kofi Kingston, who was on the brink of superstardom. Why they dropped the ball on him, I have no idea. You had Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, and Dolph Ziggler. McIntyre was looked at as the favorite in this matchup, considering he was kind of the chosen one. He had just dropped the IC title, and I believe the original plan was for him to win, according to a former creative writer, before plans changed for whatever reason. And that was before the domestic incident with Tiffany, aka Taryn Terrell, his real-life wife at that time. That kind of flushed any plans down the toilet of him, right down the toilet for him to become a future star in this industry, or at least in WWE, unfortunately. But the match itself I really enjoyed. I thought all 8 guys all held their own. Of the 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, I enjoyed this one the most because it had more excitement, I felt. Kofi Kingston came out of this thing looking like an absolute star. He set Drew McIntyre up on a commentating table at ringside. He went to one of the tallest ladders and did a boom drop off the top of it. A stellar spot, I thought, that kind of stole the matchup. Christian and Matt Hardy kind of had a beef going into the matchup, saying, I've never won the big one, you've never won the big one, we're both desperate to win this matchup, so they kind of had a little thing going. Cody Rhodes, who wasn't really a threat to me to win, although he was a great talent, much like Dolph Ziggler, and they eventually would, they needed to go through the Intercontinental title level first. But still, both of them had really good showings here. Drew McIntyre did not do much after getting taken out by Kofi Kingston, but it kind of left you wondering, will he slide back into the end? Will he win this thing like many people think he would? Big Show, it's pretty well documented. I'm not the biggest Big Show fan, and although I thought it was a bit ridiculous, he did not need to win. He shouldn't have won. And I thought it was a bit ridiculous. It was silly, but it was fun. In retrospect, I kind of popped for it when they brought it back 2 years later when he was in another Money in the Bank ladder match in 2012 on this pay-per-view. But when he brought out that X amount of tons, I don't know how many tons it was, but it was a fucking heavy ladder that could hold up to like over 2,000 pounds or whatever it was. And he showed it off on SmackDown. He did end up bringing it into this matchup. I didn't think he would, but he did. It was underneath the ring. And at the end, it played a pretty big factor in all 8 guys being on this ladder at the same time. So it was an awesome spot, and I thought it was really cool. Again, he did not do much, but when Big Show, Big Show is better just in general. Less is more. He's better when he's limited. If he's overexposed, then I hate him. But when he's like in small doses, I think the guy can be very effective. He can be very entertaining, as I thought he was here. He came into this thing as not really an underdog. He wasn't a favorite to win. He was kind of like that X Factor, like you've never seen Big Show in a ladder match before. How do you think he's going to win? How does he have any chance in hell of winning this thing? And he brought in that big ladder, and I thought it was cool. A nice little addition, nice little cool thing to add to the contest. But in the end, it was Kane, who most of the matchup was kind of focused on to begin with. I mean, going into this thing, I didn't think Kane was going to win. I wanted to see him win, and I popped big when he did. Again, I did not watch this matchup originally, but when I heard of the result that he did win, I popped big. I thought it was awesome. But anyway, though, I didn't think he was going to win, because although at this period in time he was doing the whole "I found Undertaker in a vegetative state," and that was the word they used during the whole storyline. That was like their buzzword. I found Undertaker in a vegetative state over Memorial Day weekend. Who was the attacker? Blah 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 blah. Despite that, I didn't think he had a chance in hell of winning this thing. If anything, I thought McIntyre was going to win, or I think my favorite was Christian. I wrote a preview article of the event, interestingly enough, on Bleacher Report right before the event, and you can check it out if you go to my website, nexteraWrestling.net, and go to pay-per-view prediction pieces. It's like the first one on there, bank on it, my 2010 Money in the Bank predictions. And I think I had my money was on Christian to win this thing, but I popped huge for Kane winning, because, in 2015 I probably wouldn't. But in 2010, the guy hadn't held the World Championship, other than the ECW title, in quite some time. So it was really cool to see him kind of get that shot at the World Championship once again. But in the latter half of the matchup, it was mostly focused around him in his quest to winning this contest. He had taken out all the competitors. He tossed Cody Rhodes into that the bank truck. I don't know, whatever you call it, but the Money in the Bank truck that was sitting near the stage. That was pretty cool, and the first time I've ever seen that prop used. I don't think I've seen it used since then, but that was a pretty cool spot. He took out Matt Hardy and Christian, who were both ascending the ladder at the same time. Kofi Kingston, I think he gave a chokeslam to, and all the other guys he pretty much decimated throughout. And after all was said and done, I think Drew McIntyre was going up the ladder after I think Kane had been taken out at one point. Everyone was down and out. Drew McIntyre comes from underneath the rubble. Big Show had been buried with steel chairs. Or not steel chairs, steel ladders. Drew McIntyre comes from out after being attacked by Kofi Kingston after being on the receiving end of that boom drop. He slides into the ring, ascends the ladder. Everyone thinks he's going to win. Kane comes up, chokeslams him off the thing, and grabs a briefcase for himself to a nice pop from the crowd. So I thought that was a really nice finish. Again, would I want to see that in 2015? Would I want to see that next Sunday at Money in the Bank? Absolutely not. I think Kane's time has come and gone. And, I'm seeing people now say, he should win Money in the Bank ladder match, turn face, win the World Championship, and have that last hurrah on top. But that was 5 years ago, guys. That was 5 years ago. When this happened, this was Kane's last hurrah as World Champion. 5 years later, he's had his run. He's good. I like Kane, but I don't need to see him as World Champion in 2015. In 2010, when we had 2 world titles and it was okay to do it on the SmackDown brand, I was all for it, and I'll get back to Kane just a little bit. But to see him win this matchup, I thought it was well-deserved. But to see him win this matchup 5 years later for the second time, not really a fan. Up next for the Divas Championship, Alicia Fox defending the gold against Eve Torres. In a decent match, there really was nothing to write home about. They worked hard, they put forth a nice effort, but, simply put, no one cared. The Divas division in 2010 was dead as could be. It was the title basically changed hands every other week or every other month without any real direction. It was like, a title change, a new champion, let's do the rematch, the next pay-per-view, and that's about it. No one cared. I feel bad because Eve Torres was really talented. Alicia Fox was, kind of on her way up and deserved that title reign. But other than that, though, the match was okay, but no one gave a shit because there was no story going into this. They had like a rematch on Raw that went to a DQ or something, I think. But other than that, though, this was kind of the match was just kind of there. Alicia Fox winning, retaining her Divas Championship, and that was about it. Up next for the unified WWE Tag Team titles, the Hart Dynasty defending against the Usos. And it was only a couple months before this the Usos arrived on the scene, immediately jumping into the tag team title picture and triggering a feud with the Hart Dynasty, which I thought was pretty good. It was a decent feud. They exchanged wins in singles competition. They exchanged wins in tag team action. And it was a good match, but again, people just didn't really care. They really didn't put forth that much of an effort to put heat on the Usos. They didn't even win that 6-person tag team match at the the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view the month prior. They had the Hart Dynasty go over there. So, the Usos were coming along well. They're great athletes, but on this point in time, they weren't over, which is, funny to say because 5 years later, they're like one of the most over acts in all of WWE. But at this period in time, they had just come in. They just weren't really they didn't have much heat on them at this period in time. But it was still a good match, so they worked a decent matchup. The Hart Dynasty coming out victorious, still the WWE Tag Team Champions. And much like the Divas division, there really wasn't much to get excited about in tag team wrestling in WWE. They only had the Hart Dynasty kind of leading the division. But other than then, though, they had the Usos, they had a few guys over on SmackDown, they had the Straight Edge Society, they had the Dude Busters, Hawkins and Archer, but none of those guys were given a substantial period of time, or like TV time, an ample amount of TV time to really develop their characters and make people care about them. So these matches kind of fell flat with the crowd, and the tag team division was as dead as could be in 2010. It always has its ups. The tag team division always has its ups. It always has its downs, and this was definitely one of the down periods because people just didn't really care. Although I did think this was a decent matchup, though, and I did enjoy it for what it was. Up next for the World Heavyweight Championship, Rey Mysterio defending against Jack Swagger in what I thought was one of the better matches of the night, and that was not a Money in the Bank ladder match. A really good match. I thought these two worked well together. Unlike the Usos, Jack Swagger by this period in time was pretty much a joke. He was essentially a joke. But at least they tried to put more heat on that guy, but put more heat on the guy by having him attack Rey Mysterio going into the pay-per-view, locking the ankle lock on the Big Show at one period in time and kind of break the ankle of Rey Mysterio, and have Rey Mysterio play injured throughout the contest. I thought it was a bit weird. Rey Mysterio, they were like, oh, he proved on SmackDown he could still hit the 619. I thought it would have been a better story had they just played the card that he couldn't hit the 619 at all. They kind of played the card that that he could still hit the 619 despite being injured. Why would you go for a move that you're injured for? That you can't hit 100%. Why would you go for it and risk further injuring yourself, That didn't really make much sense, and at least the commentators tried to explain it away. Not too effectively, but at least they tried. I appreciated the effort. But, other than that, though, Rey Mysterio's injury pretty much being completely ignored. I thought it was a really good match, so I thought these two worked well together. Rey Mysterio winning the match via a roll-up. Protected Swagger for the time being, although it really wasn't necessary. Jack Swagger was out of the world title picture from this point forward. He would never be considered a threat to the main event again until that cup of coffee run in early 2013 on the road to WrestleMania. But yeah, they really didn't do much with him after this pay-per-view, so I didn't really see the need in kind of protecting him in this matchup. I thought it was fine. I liked it, but if they didn't have any long-term plans for him to be a main event guy on SmackDown, then what was the point? Despite that, though, I thought this was a really good matchup. Rey Mysterio winning with the roll-up to retain his World Heavyweight Championship. Jack Swagger, out of anger, attacking Rey Mysterio after the matchup, locking in the ankle lock and attempting to do further damage to his ankle. Out comes Kane, who had been buddy-buddy with Rey Mysterio at this period in time, and clears out Jack Swagger, brawls with him to the back. Rey Mysterio, while they go to the back, Rey Mysterio continues to celebrate his World Championship victory. And then Kane's music hits. People just go nuts. It's a great crowd reaction. Kane now comes out with his Money in the Bank briefcase in tow and a referee. They ring the bell. World Heavyweight Championship match right here, right now. Kane makes very quick work of Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio tried to avoid the onslaught by going to the other side of the ring, but to no avail. Kane took advantage of the injury, hit a chokeslam on poor Rey Mysterio, followed it up with a tombstone to win his first World Heavyweight Championship. I thought this was a great moment, one of my favorite moments of 2010. Again, if this happened in 2015, I would not be as kind to it, but because Kane had been overlooked for so long, one of the greatest characters in WWE history, and yes, he was a veteran at this period in time, but I looked at it as his last hurrah, in which people are kind of looking at his run now, but I felt in 2010 this was his last run on top, and to finally win the World Heavyweight Championship and become the first man in history, I believe, to win all three of WWE. I think I was more excited about that more often than not. More that than the fact that Kane won, was the fact that history was made when he won this matchup. Kane became the first man in WWE history for whatever it was worth, because one of these three championships was not on the level of the other two, and I'm sure you can guess which one. Kane became the first man in WWE history to win the WWE World Heavyweight and ECW titles. So I thought that was a cool little accolade. The only other two guys to have done that include CM Punk the following year and Big Show also in 2011 as well. So I thought that was a nice little fun factoid for those out there, for those fans out there of the Big Red Monster. But yeah, I thought it was a good match, a great moment with Kane cashing in and becoming the World Heavyweight Champion, which would plant the seeds for his heel turn and the fact that he was indeed the attacker of The Undertaker. Something I really wasn't fond of because we had seen the feud a bunch of times before. But again, it was a nice little nostalgia run for Kane to win the World Championship and feud with his brother, The Undertaker, one final time. So I thought it was good. I thought it was a great moment, an awesome win for Kane, and they would have the rematch between Rey Mysterio and Kane the following month at SummerSlam. Rey Mysterio was protected as well. He was injured. He had just gone through a match with Jack Swagger, so he was protected in defeat. Up next, for the Women's Championship, Layla, she was the Women's Champion. Michelle McCool did defend it at times as co-Women's Champions, whatever. But Layla was the official Women's Champion, defending against Kelly Kelly. In a decent match, again, not of the two matches I preferred Alicia Fox versus Dee Torres. Thankfully, this matchup did not go as long as that one did. This was a botch fest. I mean, Layla did not look good here. Kelly, God forbid, did not look good. A lot of sloppy spots. Were not on their A game on this night. The interference from Michelle McCool and Tiffany at ringside did not help matters at all. A very sloppy matchup. Layla picking up the victory to retain the Women's Championship. Easily the worst match on the show, and I appreciated the fact they had two women's title matches on this show. One of the very few times that had been done with the Divas Championship and women's titles being defended, but the unification of those two championships could not come soon enough because they did not have enough talent, respectively, on each brand to warrant there being two titles. It may have seemed like a good idea a couple years earlier when they instituted the Divas Championship over on SmackDown, when we did have enough women talent on both the shows for it to work. But in 2010, you only had the only four women on SmackDown who could go were Layla, Michelle McCool, and Kelly to an extent, and Tiffany, who was barely coming along at this period in time. And you didn't have much women's talent on Raw either, so you had to combine those two women's rosters sooner rather than later, and thankfully that came at the Night of Champions pay-per-view a couple months later. But very sloppy match. Layla still your women's champion. And up next, the second of the two Money in the Bank ladder matches on this night for the shot at the WWE Championship, a contract for a WWE title match at any time and any place. The competitors included Randy Orton, Edge, Evan Bourne, John Morrison, Chris Jericho, The Miz, Mark Henry, and Ted DiBiase. So a very star-studded cast. While the SmackDown one had more up-and-coming talent, this one had a lot of established names, a lot more veteran status, and guys that could go in Money in the Bank ladder matches. Mark Henry was originally not supposed to be in this matchup. R-Truth was supposed to be in it. He got injured, I think, definitely in storyline. I don't know about in real life. I don't know why they opted to write him out if he was only back 2 months, or like a week or two after this. But anyway, I think he was actually back the next night on Raw, or maybe a week later or something like that. I know he was back in WWE. I know he returned like the night after the pay-per-view, so why bother taking him out of the match to begin with? But anyway, I thought that was cool. We had Mark Henry in this contest. But yeah, a lot of good talent, a lot of guys that could go in a Money in the Bank ladder match. You had your Edges, you had your Ortons and Jerichos, so they really all held their own. And the story here between Edge and Jericho saying, I invented the Money in the Bank ladder match, and Edge saying, I've won the Money in the Bank ladder match before, I'm going to cash in again tonight to become WWE Champion right after the main event. So both guys were, arch rivals in this contest. Orton was over as all hell in this matchup. He was the guy that I thought did not need the briefcase to win it, so I was really not high on him winning. Evan Bourne was just a spot monkey. This is around the period in time when he was getting pushed. I have no idea what happened with singles push after this pay-per-view, but he really performed well in this contest. John Morrison, another guy who was kind of like a spot monkey. Mark Henry, just kind of catching people after their falls. But he had a fine outing. He did not take away from this matchup at all. And then there was Ted DiBiase, who was just kind of the dark horse who I thought at one time could win the briefcase with his money gimmick. I thought it was perfect. But, a lot of people said at that time he just was not ready, and he was not. Although I did see him as a future star. The Miz was easily the most ready out of anyone in this contest, and I was glad he won. And while I said before the first of the two Money in the Bank ladder matches was the better of the two, in my opinion, the one for the World Heavyweight Championship contract, I thought this was very good as well. All 8 guys that had their moment at one period in time. at one time or another. Mark Henry being taken out by the Chuck kick at ringside by John Morrison, Jericho hitting a code breaker, and then Edge following it up with a spear, so that took out Mark Henry. Ted DiBiase climbed up the ladder and they dumped him over to ringside. Maurice, who was with Ted DiBiase at that period in time, attempted to climb the ladder, which was cool. That was something we had never seen before. At least I don't think so. I know Vicky tried to do that. Maybe it was the next year. Maybe it was in 2012. I don't remember when it was. Actually, I think it might have been on this show when they did it earlier in the night when Dolph Ziggler. I can't remember exactly. It might have been a year later. I can't remember. I don't think he was in the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2011. Anyway, I think it might have been earlier in the night when Vicky ascended the ladder. But anyway, it was still a cool spot to see, what happens. What would happen if a manager went, if Maurice unhooked the briefcase. It was kind of something innovative. It was cool. So I like that aspect of it too. Evan Bourne hitting a shooting star press on a Randy Orton at one point. Everyone having their moment at one point or another. So I thought that was cool. And after all was said and done, Orton had taken out everyone. He had RKO'd Edge. He had RKO'd Chris Jericho. The path was clear to the Money in the Bank briefcase. The opportunistic contract for Randy Orton to grab possession of. When all of a sudden, Miz, out of nowhere, bombards Randy Orton, takes him out, and wins the contract. So I thought that was great. So happy to see Miz get his moment. And the promo that he cut after the contest was glorious. Just kind of saying that you were wrong, I was right. I'm a future WWE champion, I'm the Miz, and I'm awesome. Miz, from 2009 to 2010, in my opinion, was one of the best mic workers in the company. He had come a long way from his time on SmackDown as the host of the Diva Search, all the way through his time on ECW, on the Dirt Sheet, and with John Morrison, his time as United States Champion, which he was at this period in time, becoming the first and only man in WWE history to hold a mid-card title, or at least win the briefcase while holding a mid-card championship. Rob Van Dam had won the IC title while Mr. Money in the Bank, not the other way around. So that was a cool aspect of it too. Loved the promo afterwards, and again, a very enjoyable matchup, and the Miz winning was well deserved. So we get to the main event, a steel cage match for the WWE Championship between Sheamus and John Cena. Sheamus was the defending champion here. A good match. I mean, the matches between Sheamus and John Cena I've never been overly excited for. They've had, decent matches. Their chemistry is just non-existent. Sheamus is a great worker, but I feel like his best matches usually happen with guys like Dolph Ziggler or Daniel Bryan or guys like that. With guys like Orton and John Cena, his matches aren't bad. They're just, they're okay at best. I just can't get excited about them. And, granted, one of the biggest factors of this contest that kind of held it back from being something more was that you knew the Nexus was going to get involved. So the crowd didn't really invest in any of the near falls or didn't invest in either guy climbing over the cage because you knew the Nexus was about to get involved. This whole summer revolved around them. And again, to this day, my favorite faction in WWE history. Love the Nexus, or at least my favorite faction since I became a fan. So they were just waiting for the Nexus to get involved. They weren't really popping for any of the near falls. And wouldn't you know it, the Nexus comes down. They ask the referee for the key. They demand it. Or Michael Tarver comes down with hedge cutters or bolt cutters or whatever it is. And one of the referee takes it away. They run to the back. And then the other referee has the key. And they beg the referee for the key. And the referee throws the key out into the crowd. So they're just standing there arguing with the referee for about God knows what, because he didn't have the key anymore, so I don't know what they expected was going to happen. So in the ring, the referee gets knocked down, and Sheamus rakes the eyes of John Cena. John Cena seemingly gets the 1, 2, 3. There's no referee to get the count, to make the call. John Cena attempting to climb over the cage. Justin Gabriel, goes to the top of the cage. He looks to prevent John Cena from winning the matchup, and John Cena AAs him from the top of the cage, inside the cage, to the inside of the cage. He takes out Darren Young, he takes out Michael Tarver, but it's not enough. Sheamus on the other side escapes, he takes the title, retains the championship, and runs off. And that was pretty much it. So I thought it was a solid matchup. I didn't think it was bad, but just the crowd was waiting for the Nexus to get involved. So the first 3 quarters of this matchup weren't really all that suspenseful because they knew that it wasn't going to end until they got involved. I wrote a Bleacher Report article about this a couple weeks ago, and I understand why it wasn't done here. But the whole purpose why this matchup was made a steel cage match to begin with was to prevent interference. That's the whole purpose of a steel cage match. So to have them get involved regardless, I mean, if you're going to get the Nexus involved, why not just do a straight-up one-on-one matchup between Cena and Sheamus. You know, at least it makes them, at least it warrants the interference. But the steel cage, it's just dumb because it's supposed to prevent them from getting involved, in which they got involved anyway. So what was the point of the steel cage? Because they cost John Cena the match regardless. So I thought that was kind of dumb. But yeah, other than that, though, I thought it was a solid matchup, a decent closer to the show, and left you wondering what was next for John Cena and the Nexus. So on the whole, I thought it was a good show. Not a great show, not as good, definitely not as good as some of the later installments in 2011 for sure, 2012 and 2013, but it was still solid and kind of a nice little introduction to the first ever Money in the Bank pay-per-view event, and which has become my favorite, one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year on the WWE calendar. Needless to say, the two matches from this show you need to go out of your way to watch are the two Money in the Bank ladder matches. Both matches delivered. Thought they were a lot of fun. The world title matchup between Mysterio and Swagger was very good. The subsequent moment of Kane cashing in Money in the Bank the same night that he won it, becoming the first man in history to do so, and then also to win the World Heavyweight Championship from Rey Mysterio. I thought it was a great moment as well. So I thought those three matches and moments combined made for a decent show, made up for the kind of lackluster undercard. The two women's matches were okay. The tag team title match was good, but it wasn't anything all that special. And the main event was not great, but it was solid, and I thought it was, kind of further the storyline, kind of progress the storyline with Cena and the Nexus, and kind of left you wondering, like I said before, what was going to happen next on Raw, what precautions John Cena would take in getting rid of the Nexus. So I thought it was an entertaining event, and definitely go back and watch it on the WWE Network before Money in the Bank next Sunday. So that's going to do it for my review of Money in the Bank 2010. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Always appreciated. But if you want to support me and the show, WrestleRant, YouTube, whatever, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All of your support is greatly appreciated. You can find me on Twitter on WrestleRant, or at WrestleRant, on Facebook at Graham G. Matthews, at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Like I said, new videos almost every single day, from WrestleRant to hashtag AskGSM, the rambling videos, the WrestleRant radio excerpts, and all the other miscellaneous content. You're missing out on a huge deal to subscribe to the channel. You'll be notified every time a new video goes up. And of course, we are closing in on almost 700 subscribers by the time this goes up. If we don't already have 700 subscribers on Saturday when this goes up, we're coming close. So be a part of the Wrestling Revolution and subscribe today. Thanks for watching, folks. Always appreciate it. Have a great weekend. I'll catch you back here tomorrow for my review of my favorite WWE pay-per-view of all time, Money in the Bank 2011. Catch you guys then.